Yes, first of all, I would be interested to know how you came to make this documentary.
In 2016, I was approached by a friend of mine who asked me if I could help him on this project, and he heard about a group of the women and children who were accepted by Germany, by the Baden-Württemberg region, and he just knew that there were women who went through the sexual slavery, and they were brought here to Germany, so this was the beginning of the project, and I started to work on some concept and on some materials around it, and then later on he couldn't continue this film for his personal reasons, so I was left with a situation in which I was not in Germany, I didn't meet the women, and yet I had to decide what to do with the film project, which I have already started, and the stories of the people who really touched me. So I decided to come to Germany, and I arrived in the beginning of 2017, in 17. And then when the people, these women, but I didn't also want to just meet women. So when these people who were here, the Yazidis who were living in Germany, started to show me the pictures on their phones, I immediately knew that the film is in Iraq, because this is where everybody is pointing. The places, the family members who are left back in Iraq.
Lauter bitte.
Oh, okay, sure. So I went in 2017, after this trip to Germany, I went to Iraq, I went to Kurdistan, and in Kurdistan I had a really good luck to meet first of all Hanifa, and secondly, and you know, I met Hanifa's sister already here in Germany, but I didn't know Hanifa, I didn't know she even exists. So I went to meet someone, one of the people who were affected by the genocide, which was Hanifa, and then this is how we met, and then when Hanifa started to show me the pictures on her phones, and I realized these are the people who I met, so we became very close immediately, of course, of the situation. And then I also, when I was in Germany, I met a boy who was also a victim of the genocide, and he gave me a phone number, and it turned out it's somewhere really high in the hierarchy. So when I made this phone call, I got the permission to go to Sinjar, which everybody was shocked about, because Sinjar was completely blocked. So at this time, ISIS was in Tel Afar still. The Tel Afar was still under ISIS control, and this is like 50 kilometers from Sinjar. And that the only road was from Kurdistan, but Kurdistan side didn't want to let people go into this territory. So having this permission, I was able to basically enter the Sinjar just after the liberation. So I managed to go to Kocho as the first, basically Western journalist to there. So this is how it started for me. And then of course I stayed in Sinjar, in Iraq. Next time I came to Baghdad, I started to have all these different connections with these different military sources, so this is the story.
Yes, you're pretty close to your main characters. How did you develop such a deep understanding with them?
Well, with Hanifa, of course, I don't know, we became very close very quickly, because, well, I was there also for Hanifa, not just for the film, but also trying to you know, she would call me to talk, because she was very down at this time when I met her, because it was already over 2 years and she couldn't meet any sister, and she was very frustrated by this. She was crying a lot, and so having someone, a little bit of support, and her family was away, so you know, my presence in Iraq was of course important for her. I was a little bit a connection between her family. She was hoping maybe she will get the visa, because I told her we will try to organize a conference in Poland, which eventually we did, and I knew that for filming it would be very important to bring her, and of course Iraq is the lowest in the terms of getting visas of all the countries. I mean, it's a couple countries Afghanistan, Iraq and some other country which are the lowest on the list, so it's impossible for these people to travel legally. So I mean, I was a big hope for Hanifa, so or maybe this was one of the also factors for her important. But just a friendship also, just a relationship with someone. She's very emotional, very kind, very giving. She would be worried if I would go out and I wouldn't return. She would immediately call, am I okay? I would go to store and I would get her phone calls. So she was very protective, very, very, very kind to me. And with Seit, because I was in Sinjar, and this was the time when I came for the second time to Sinjar, it was impossible to fly to Iraq, to Kurdistan, because there were some fights going on between Hashdashabi, between this PMU and central Baghdad government forces and Peshmergas. There is this conflict. I mean, we are talking about the region which is completely on fire, which is between all this border with Syria and then Kurdistan and then Baghdad central government, Sunni Muslim. So there is like a really dispute territory between Syria, Turkey, Iraq and all these different regions, in Iraq, including the Autonomic Republic of, region of Kurdistan. So this is also a very, very tense place. So when I arrived, this was just fresh when they were pushed out of, Peshmergas, the Kurdish forces were pushed out of Sinjar. So the planes were not landing in Kurdistan, in Erbil. The borders were closed, so I could not go to Kurdistan to meet with Hanifa, but fortunately I already developed this connection through Baghdad, so I was able, and also the Tel Afar was finally liberated, so I was able to go through this very dangerous road of going through Baghdad and Mosul and Tel Afar, all these regions which are still full of ISIS up to date. So of course it was very difficult, and but I arrived, but Hanifa couldn't come. I couldn't come to Kurdistan. So basically the checkpoints were sealed, were closed. For sometimes there was no movement between. So I was kind of desperate because I was thinking what I'm doing here in Sinjar. I need a protagonist. I need someone to film, and then a car stopped and it was Seit, and he came out in his dark glasses, like from a totally different movie, and I was thinking, my God, what a character. And then he invited me for the next day to come and join him and the celebration of his family in Kocho, and I went, and this is when I found out his story, of course, which is so absolutely heartbreaking and tragic. And I asked him, I approached him, I asked him if he would be able to share the story, and he told me no, because it is too difficult for him. But then he was thinking about it, and he came back and he said, okay, fine, I will cooperate with you. But I could also see how absolutely heartbroken and devastated he is after the filming, so I knew it's important to make the movie, but also, unfortunately, sometimes this is too much for those protagonists. So, yeah.
Another question is, the film ends with Hanifa still looking for her last sister. Are there any news?
There has been some news, but nothing really for certain. So we've been hearing from different places that she may be alive. And this is like the first time after many years she even heard about her sister, but we also don't know if it's her. People say sorts of stories. Hanifa, before releasing her sisters, she found out that one of them died and second of them died, one drowned, one was killed in an airstrike, and it turned out it were totally different people. So Hanifa is also quite, reluctant to accept things very easily. So she has hopes, but nothing really happened from this time. Yeah, she's still looking for her sister.
Okay, are there any questions from the audience? Okay, if not, I have another question. Also about the family. How is the family today? Because we see part of the families in Germany, and of course, it would be interesting to know how the situation developed.
Yes, so I brought two of Hanifa's sisters quite recently to Europe, and they were able to join the mother. I don't know if they will be able to stay here. I think the case is pursued, and they've been questioned by the different parliaments of Europe because of the fact that there were different citizens of different European countries involved in the rape and perpetrating some heinous activities on those particular girls. So I know the investigation is, I think, going on. I don't know, maybe it's not anymore, but yeah, I think there are some things being done. And also these people are always in danger because ISIS is here, ISIS is there, ISIS, and also the political people are not happy that we talk about the genocide. So yeah, Hanifa has been threatened after returning. She is very brave, and for us it's just a film, but when she comes here and speaks, she's always in danger. And the very fact that she was agreeing and participating in the film, she understands that she risks her life. She's kind of putting herself on spot, on the spotlight. So yeah, it's
Any question? Then I have another question regarding the trauma. Of course, all of them still have problems, so I would be interested to know if there is any support for them in Germany or...
the biggest problem is that these women returning from captivity, and many of them, they have hopes because they live for the moment of return, and then many of them, we can talk about Hanifa's family, but there is many more women who are returning, and this is the end point, because there is no work, there is no school, there is a camp which has the horrifying condition. And one of the most heartbreaking interviews for me was with a woman who returned from captivity, and she tried to commit suicide 7 times by now. Even she has 2 small little children, and she told me she's completely devastated because she was in love with her husband and he is not there she understands he must be dead by now, of course, and she told me no one was waiting for me when I returned. So for these people not having any help, not being accepted to the countries, most of them anywhere, and not being able to give them something to do, something to live for, some goal. Like for example, Nadia Murad, she made this amazing development for being a speaker for United Nations and for United Nations. I'm really right now angry at all these institutions. They just for war, they not for peace, they don't support, they don't look for these people, for the victims. Where are those soldiers? Why are they not doing these operations? I was watching yesterday something on news, how brave and how well trained those people are, and how can they do this and that, and they are sitting right now on the Romanian border with Ukraine, waiting for another war to start on a big scale, instead of killing one nurse, which was already done in the Middle East, So I'm really, really upset about it, of course, and I'm really a fierce critic right now of all this funding to those institutions and paying our tax dollars for people who are just starting and continuing war after war or war after war, while the people are really suffering. And there is a huge army of ISIS growing up, because in all these camps, these kids which are left with these ISIS mothers are growing into grown-up men. So we are having another danger which the Middle East, but also we are facing. So in all this midst of all of this, this is really shocking. But what was the question? I kind of diversed.
So maybe you're already talking about the problem is the next film is already starting in 5 minutes, but you're already talking about the role of the international politics. So it would be interesting to know what you think. What are there measures, or is there anything which would help?
Yeah, so these women don't have protection, they have no psychological help, they have nowhere to return, and of course I see that the international community absolutely is not doing enough. This genocide is not really well known. This is why I felt compelled to make a movie about it. But my biggest question is actually also we have all these conferences and books and many different things. So how do we stop the genocides? You know, there's another one going on in Yemen today, and no one almost is talking about it. Another one is on the eastern, you know, border, and there is a big push for war from everybody instead of push for peace. And you know, we are facing right now a much higher danger because at stake we have a nuclear weapon which is gonna be most probably used, or you know, I don't know. I mean, this is something which shocks me, that we are living a normal life and not seeing this, that we must be protesting, must be overwhelming our representatives, parliamentarists, and all these different institutions with our discontent from this, what is happening, you know, and whatever we can do, you know, we should really start really voting, you know, for people who are outside of this big club of military complexes and endless money spending for wars and profiting some, while most of the world becomes more and more deep in debts and suffering and wars and tears and genocide and all of this. So yes, I am for peace, and especially when you've been in places like this, I think you have a full right to be for this peace and be against those military spendings, endless, and next wars and more destruction of the world, but now much closer to our home. And what I'm seeing, I think they are going to engage in a world war. It's already planned, it's already decided. It has nothing to do with this or that. It is much more, you know, planned in cabinets than it's in a real life. Of course, if you go to Ukraine, you find people who are offended by the fact that somebody, or you know, hurt or destroyed by the fact that somebody came and destroyed our family. But at the same time, we do not have still this mechanism. We do have mechanisms for war, but we don't have anyone who is stepping out and speaking against it. And for this reason, I really value the politicians and everybody and people who are speaking today. Stop this nonsense. Don't get engaged in it. It's too much at stake right now. We do not want third war, and I see it as a continuation of the same thing. More than this, the same people are behind it. So my question is, when we stop it, you know, and it's my anger, my discontent, my also plea, my ask for peace and for you know, supporting each other and not allowing them also to split us, because they want to split us. They want us to be against each other. This who took the medication, who didn't take the medication, those who have this party or that party, who are doing this or that, you know, don't do it. You know, we need. The war starts here, now, today, in our house, when we are not able to eat dinner together as a family because they allowed for this, you know, separation, for this hatred, for this arguing constant, you know, these quarrels, etc. So I think this is something which we have to be just respectful, we have to be loving, we have to vote wisely, we have to protest those kind of things. This is my position, but this is all what I can do. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to present my story, and thank you for the invitation. And for this amazing festival, for, you know, this fact that also the women are doing so many fantastic things, and we need this power for changing this world for better, and we need every support in doing this. So thank you for you. Thank you.